Hey, this is Brent Wernsing, lead pastor of Kairos Church. Thanks so much for tuning into our podcast today. We are currently in our series, We Are Kairos. During this series, we will be going over our vision and our values, what makes us Kairos, who we are, and what we stand for. And during this series, we're going to challenge you to get plugged in, not only to listen, but also to attend every Sunday for the entire series, to get plugged in through serving by becoming a moment maker or by connecting in one of our connect groups. You can also be a champion of the church through supporting us financially. We hope that you will, during our series, take one of those next steps in your walk with Jesus. Hey, until then, I hope you enjoy this message.
All right. Well, good morning again. I know I was already out here once. Man, we're getting this set up. It's going to be an awesome time. I got some guest speakers joining me today. We did this first service, and they killed it. It was awesome. I'm excited about today, about this value. Probably my favorite value of all our values. Now, I love all of our values and all that we've been sharing, but today, love the fatherless. This one is just very near and dear to my heart, and it's weaved into the DNA of who we are as a church. And I just want to dive right into this. So they're going to put the value up, love the fatherless. And this is what it says, that we will do our part to provide help, hope, and love for orphans and those who are advocating for them. And so that's what we're going to talk about today through my time with you. And then I want to bring some other people up. So I'm going to challenge you. We're going to go through Nehemiah just a little bit. I'm going to challenge you all to live this out in your life. But most of the time, you're going to be hearing from other people, other families who are living this value out in their life. I'm going to do my best to keep my part short so you can hear their powerful testimonies. So we've been in Nehemiah. During this series, We Are Kairos, we've been talking about Nehemiah and Nehemiah going back to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall and, man, just standing up against enemies. And we're going to do the same today. And maybe you're like, well, how are you going to, tie in Nehemiah rebuilding a wall into loving the fatherless and foster care? And I can, and it's good, and y'all about to get wrecked, okay? You about to get wrecked. And it's going to be good, but you're going to get wrecked. And so God's going to do a big thing in your life. And so I'm excited about that. I want to pray with you guys, and then we'll dive into this. God, we are just blown away by who you are and the love that you have for each and every one of us, and man, that we get to be a part of the story that you are writing every single day. God, speak to us today. Allow us to, just allow your word and your people's testimony to saturate our hearts and our minds and challenge us to get involved in what you call us to. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. So we're going to dive into Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 13. Just to kind of set this up, you go back to Nehemiah 1. Nehemiah hears about what's been taking place in Jerusalem, that the walls of the city are still in ruin and destruction, and he has this burden's call, and he wants to go back to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall. And so that's where we find ourselves in Nehemiah 2. He's inspecting the wall to see what's going on. And here's what it says, verse 13. It says, "As we went, we examined the walls of Jerusalem, and they were as bad as we had heard. No stone remained standing, and the fire had consumed the gates." It goes on in verse 17. It says, "Our trouble is obvious. The wall of Jerusalem has been reduced to a pile of rocks, and its gates consumed by flame." Now, what I've come to know, being a foster parent for the last 7 years, and just what this says is that the trouble that is facing our community, facing these kids, facing these families, it's obvious. Kids and families' lives have been reduced to rubble and to ruin. They've been consumed by the flames and by sin and by the enemy. And everything they have, everything they've known, everything they love, it's been broken down. Their life is in pieces. And what you need to know is that these kids, they're not only removed from their parents, they're also separated from siblings. Security, safety, any form of normalcy, it's gone. They don't have it. There's hurt and there's pain and there's destruction. And what you got to know is that the enemy's hand is in all of it. He's in it. He's working his schemes. Sin has a hand in it. But what you also need to remember is that God is always in control of it. No matter what's going on, God is in control. And what that means for you and me is that we have a role to play in what God is working through their journey. We have a role to play in rebuilding the destruction that has taken place in the lives of these kids and of these families. Nehemiah 4, verse 14, it says, "Remember the eternal, our great and awesome Lord." And it calls us to action. "Fight for your people, for sisters, for brothers, for sons, for daughters, for wives, and for their homes." Listen, God loves and cares for these kids. God loves and cares for these parents that may have made a mistake or are struggling. And while you and I may not have a biological connection to them, we are connected to them through God's love for them, right? Because we're all a part of God's family. All of us are God's children. We are adopted into his family. And for those of us who are already underneath his umbrella, we're called to go and to bring more people into it. We're called to fight for God's people, for brothers, sisters, for sons, for daughters, for wives, and for their homes and for their family. When we hear about this trouble, this ruin, the destruction that has taken place, our response should be the same as Nehemiah's. We should step into it. Nehemiah in chapter 4, verse 9, his response to what was going on was twofold. He prayed, and Nehemiah was constantly praying. He prayed to God, and he set up watch day and night to look out for them. And so as we hear about what's going on, we hear about a burden, we hear about a calling, we hear about the destruction that has taken place, the first thing we got to do is we got to go to God and we got to pray and say, God, I need your strength. God, I need your wisdom. God, I need your power. God, I need your guidance. God, I need you to help me through this because I can't do it on my own. And so we bring God into it and we say, God, guide us. Help us persevere in this calling. And then once we, allow God to strengthen us and guide us, that's when we begin to set up watch and to look after these families and these kids and what they got going on. And the reason why, it goes all the way back to Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 17. It says that their trouble is obvious. Their lives are reduced to piles of rock, and their gates are consumed by fire. Make no mistake, the destruction in these families is a cause of sin and disobedience, and it's a cause of the enemy. And what the enemy wants to do is he wants to use it. He desires for it to bring about evil and destruction. But what we also know is that the Lord can use it for redemption and for blessing, and he wants to use us in it. And see, God doesn't desire for any of these kids to go through this, for any of these families to have to deal with this. But when they do go through it, God does desire for you and I, his children, to step in to help them as they go through it. You see, for these kids, for these families, in order for them to begin rebuilding their lives, it is going to take love and encouragement and strength from the local church, from this community. We are called to stand next to them. Last week, we talked about this phrase, next to, found in Nehemiah 3. We're called to stand next to them. We're called to stand next to foster parents as they foster. We're called to stand next to these children as they are removed from their homes. We're called to stand next to the biological family as they seek reunification with their kids. We're called to stand next to caseworkers, CPI, licensing specialists, transporters, and foster care advocates. We're called to stand next to them as they mire through just mountains and mountains of legal paperwork and court hearings and the different plan changes. Their call is immense, and we're called to stand next to them. See, the church loves the fatherless by standing next to them and standing next to those who stand next to them and standing next to those who stand next to them. We're called to stand next to one another and do this life together and help one another in the things that we are going through. And these kids' walls, they've been taken down. These families have been brought to destruction. These kids, their trust is destroyed. Their hope has been wrecked. Their love has been removed. And it's the call of every Jesus follower to get involved, to do their part, to rebuild trust, to rekindle that hope, and to help them love and be loved again. As Jesus followers, this is our call. And as we hear about the trouble, as we hear about the pain, as we hear about the problems, and we're called to step into it. In order for us to do that, what that means is we might have to set aside our comforts. We might have to set aside our plans. We might have to set aside our security and step into it and do something about it. Here's why I say that. If God's people aren't standing in the gap for the fatherless, then who will? Isaiah 1:17 says this. It says, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, and take up the cause of the fatherless. That is our call. That is our role. You see, with these children, with these families, every case, every plan, everything, it's different. And as we step into these, we may never fully know the amount of damage that has been done. But what I can say is this, is that no matter the depth or the severity of what they've gone through, no matter the destruction or the ruin, we are called to step into it, to risk all to help them rebuild it. And so what we do is we step into it. We step in to rebuild their walls. We step into these kids' lives to help them rebuild their trust in people, to help them rebuild their trust in God, to help rebuild their purpose, their meaning, their value. We also step in to help their parents, to rebuild their lives, to embrace Jesus. Loving the fatherless for you and I It happens. It happens when God's love is selflessly showcased through God's people. We got to get selfless. We got to be willing to sacrifice. And when we do that, we can fully and get involved in loving the fatherless. And the fatherless need people like you and me that can come alongside them, that can help them rebuild, that can advocate for them, that can protect them and support them, but not just them. Also their parents, also their caseworker, also their foster parents. We're called to stand next to them and fight for them and help them rebuild. I believe that the local church should be the greatest advocate and champion of the fatherless. And that's what we're talking about here today. Now, I have a story, a powerful story. Me and my wife and our family, we have a story of standing in the gap of loving the fatherless. And I've shared it, and I will never stop sharing it. But today what I wanted to do is I wanted to help you, I wanted to allow you to hear from other families that are standing in the gap, that are loving the fatherless. I'm going to invite them up to the stage today to encourage you, to inspire you, to challenge you to live this out. Will you welcome to the stage my wife and our guests that are coming up here with her.
Hey guys. Hi, church.
Hi, Christine.
Hi. Sorry. I'm going to move this way because it's going to fall. All right. I have some pretty cool people on the stage with me right now. I'm going to start by introducing my friend Jen. She has been an awesome friend for the past 10 years. She's the children's director at our sending church, New Walk Church. We have had the opportunity to do ministry with her through church and also through foster care. So, Jen, I'm going to start by asking you some questions.
All right.
Okay. Just kidding. Will you just share briefly your foster care journey?
Yes. So I first even heard about foster care. I was a teacher for several years at a Title I school, and a lot of those kids in those types of schools or in those areas are very low poverty. And so there were a couple kids in care, but not really much about it until I had one student in particular. Him and his sister went into care while he was in my class. And so the case manager came into the classroom and met with me and just to kind of let me know things that were going on. And I said, what can I do? And she's like, well, actually, you can take them as a non-relative placement. And I was like, what is that? I didn't really know much about foster care. Britt and Christine had actually just started fostering probably a year before that. So I knew a little bit, but back then there wasn't much just awareness of the crisis in general. And so as time went on, we were moving forward, but then a grandpa showed up. So they were like, it's fine, you don't have to take them, we got a grandpa. And I was like, okay, great. And then I was like, off the hook. And then God said, no, you're not. And so as I kept seeing it more and more, you can't unsee the war that these kids are living. And so just God had really just convicted my heart of that. And so I'm single, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. But I had all these excuses of why I could not do it. And God just said, trust me. So I stepped into it 6 years ago, and now I've had about 27 kids in and out of my home. And I currently have, I almost said 6. I only have 3. I only have 3. They're 10, 11, and 12, and they're wonderful. And so the cool thing about all of the kids that I've had have all either been reunified with their families or gone with a family member, or one has just recently been adopted. So it's been really sweet on this adventure.
You're amazing. Thank you, friend. This over here is Kelly and Ashley. They attend our church. They've been faithfully serving and supporting Kairos Church for the past about 8 months. We're just going to say 8 months because we're not sure exactly. But Ashley, you shared with us that in 2016, that was the year that you felt called to foster. Can you share about that and your journey up until now?
Sure. So Kelly and I were married in 2007, but in 2016, as you guys are aware, it was a bit of a contentious election, and there were a lot of topics being discussed, but one of them that really opened dialogue in our home was the pro-choice, pro-life discussion. And one day I was just aimlessly scrolling through Facebook, and I ran across a political cartoon, and I don't know if you've ever read something that kind of like hits you a little bit, and basically, they have it up there. It's this judge or politician saying who's against abortion, and all these people have their hands up, and then who wants to adopt. And I just felt a huge sense of conviction, not necessarily about the adoption part, but just the call to action about what in our life says that we are pro-life other than a statement. And so that created just the stirrings for us. And so in January, I guess, of 2017, in a Krispy Kreme drive-through near Celebration, we made the decision to start and register for foster care licensing class. And we kind of went in with the mindset of, let's just check it out. Let's see what it is. This doesn't commit us to anything. And here we are 2 years later, and we've had 10 children through our home between long care, long-term, or respite care, short-term. And it's been nothing short of amazing.
Amazing. All right, I'm asking you another question, Ashley. Many people go into foster care or think about foster care that they think that the biological parent is the enemy, or that they're not fit to parent. But the role of a foster parent is not just to advocate for the child, it's to advocate for that child's family. We want to partner with them and help them get them back on their feet to get their child back. We also have the opportunity to share the hope of Jesus with them. Can you share your perspective on this and how you've done this?
So when we started licensing classes, one of the days of topics is talking about co-parenting, and that is coming alongside biological families and basically parenting with them. And that terrified me because I think it came from a place of fear and just uncertainty. How would we relate to them? What would we talk about? Would they be angry at us because we had custody of their children? But our experience has been nothing like that. We have met some of the most brave and courageous people through this, and we've been able to walk beside them and encourage them and empower them, bring them to church and participate in family holidays and invite them to birthday parties and school outings. And our hope in all of this is that as we help provide stability and support and guidance for them, that they are able to then rebuild and create the family that we desire for our foster children to go home to one day, because the goal of foster care is always reunification unless it's not safe. And same for us. All of our children have either gone back home or we had one that was adopted. So.
Awesome. Miss Jen, I think some people think they need to be married or should already have a family and kids, or that they have to have their whole life together before they can become a foster parent. Can you speak into that and how you came to a decision to become a foster parent?
Yes, you don't have to be married. That's false. Single. So it's really, this was the scariest decision I've ever made. And I did, when I first started, I was like, all right, God, I'll do that, but just I'll wait until you send me my husband first. And I just felt like, and the reason really is because I was like, I'm not stepping into this. I've never had kids. I can't parent. I don't know anything about them. And I need someone to do it with me. And I just prayed, and God just said, I will equip you. And so he has. And so I've asked God to fill in the gaps everywhere where I lack. And he has sent people. He sent a village around me. And so one of the biggest struggles is when it's just me and I want to tap out and be like, tag, you're it. I don't have a husband at home, but I have friends and who I can call and say, hey, I need help. Or, hey, can you take the kids for the night? Or they just bring dinner over because I'm just sheer exhausted. And so I have my village around me. And so that has been just the sweetest thing of it. And the other piece of that is life will never be convenient. When you have your own biological children, you will never have it all together. When I stepped into fostering, I left teaching, and that year I was transitioning into my job at the church. And anyone in their right mind would say, Jen, you have an excuse. You're starting a new career, that you left a job of stability and benefits and all of that to no benefits. And it was scary. And God said, don't forget, I'm going to equip you. I'm going to provide. And so I just trusted that. And he has, and it hasn't always been easy, but he's faithful. So there's that.
Awesome. I've loved getting to walk that journey with you. Ashley, you guys recently said goodbye to a long-term foster placement and now are doing respite care. When we tell people about respite care, they have no idea that that's a possibility. So can you share a little bit about what respite care is and how helpful it is for foster parents?
Yes, so we are currently doing respite care. As Christine said, we had a placement for just over a year, and he recently moved, and so we haven't been ready to jump back into another long-term, but respite care are planned short-term placements. And so if you want to support foster families, maybe they're going on vacation, maybe they just need a time of refresh, The good part about respite care is it's unlike foster care in that you don't get that 1 a.m. phone call. You know that you're having this child from Monday to Friday, or you just get to choose a little. You're a little more selective, I guess. And so the benefit of respite care for us has been, when we first started, we only took 0 to 3. We just thought that would fit the best with our birth order of our children. And through respite care and being like, oh, we can take a 6-year-old for 3 days, how bad can it be? We've actually grown our age range, and we've just really learned to enjoy, I guess, a larger age range of children than what we thought we would initially fit in our family. And it's just been so refreshing for us as foster parents to utilize respite care, and a joy to provide respite care for other families as well. It's a great first step if you're not sure whether you want to jump in head first. It's little bites.
That's so true. All right, I want a dad's perspective, Kelly. So oftentimes women, moms, wives, we're the voice and are heavily involved in the child's life and the child's case, but the foster dad also plays a huge role in this. So can you share a little bit about your role?
Sure. So honestly, this wasn't something I really thought about much going into foster care and going through the classes. But it became very evident with our first few placements that a lot of these kids really are fatherless. And I might be the only father figure that they have in their lives. So with that in mind, I started to think more about how our relationship with our earthly fathers can somehow affect our experience of our Heavenly Father. And I wanted to make sure that the kids that came into our home really got a sense of what a father should be, what a father is, and so they can ultimately get a sense of our Heavenly Father's love.
It's beautiful. Kelly, also, what fears, questions did you have when you were stepping into this?
So my wife will tell you I'm a very big planner, and foster care does not lend itself to planning and scheduling. There's a lot of transitions. There are visits from caseworkers, there are visitations with parents, there are court dates, there are medical visits, there's all kinds of things that go on that can be disruptions in your daily life and the routine that you might be used to. So that was really my big challenge, was stepping through that, and quite honestly it was kind of relying on Ashley and a step of faith to step through that. And also, once we started doing it, seeing the value and seeing how the kids kind of progress in our homes. The other thing I really like about it is I feel like it's given us the chance for our biological kids to see how we're modeling faith and service and things like that. And I kind of have the hope that maybe that will encourage them to do the same later in life too.
Absolutely, you're setting a great example. I love what you said about, how you may be the only, father figure that these children will see. So what's your challenge or your advice to dads who are considering foster care?
So being very practical, just like Jen said, once you've seen the need, you can't unsee it. And one of the things we tend to say in our family is see a need and meet a need. And the need, even in just our local community, is really great. I don't think we've gone more than 2 weeks without having a child come into our home. So usually when I talk about foster care, the first response I get from most people is that I could never do it because I would get too attached. And I guess what I'd like to say is that's exactly what these kids need. They need you to get attached because they've lost all their other attachments. And the fear that we have of losing out, which is a real thing, but it doesn't outweigh the needs of those children who don't have a home, who don't have a father, who don't have a mother right now. And it's something that we need to step into with faith. Absolutely.
All right, Miss Jen. Foster care is a roller coaster, no matter what age of child you're fostering. But from stories, classes, training, and even personal experiences, fostering teens and preteens brings its own set of ups and downs. Can you take a few minutes to share your heart and your burden for older kids and the immense need for it?
Yes. Okay, so when I first decided I was going to take older kids, the reality is with my job, we have a crazy schedule already, and so little ones require more of a structured routine, even though there's really not such a thing. But I decided I needed kids who can wipe their own butts and tie their own shoes, and so we can get up and go. So that was my initial reason, and then over time, I realized that there are not many homes, and so I went to a training one time, and they're like, Jen, do you realize you're one of 4 families in all of Pasco and Pinellas County that take 12 and up? And I said, oh my gosh, and it was just mind-blowing, and that's still the case. Actually, at the time, it was 3 families. Now there's been another one added in. And so there is a huge crisis for these older kids, and the reality is when these kids are removed, there is still a sense of innocence to them, and I think the biggest fear with people taking older kids is that there's abuse or there's just trauma that's been done, and what if they do that to my younger kids? And that's really real and a thing, but a 2-year-old can be abused. A 2-year-old has some traumas, and they can even abuse some other kids, and so there are so many unknowns going into this, but it's not just left to the older ones. And so when these kids come in, we get that chance to cultivate that innocence. And when we don't have homes for them to go, they go to group homes. And in these group homes, there's such a high staff turnover rate. There's not really consistency of things. They don't have normalcy. In a foster home, they get to do normal things. They get to get their learner's permit. I took one of my 16-year-olds a month ago, and she got her permit, and we were at the DMV, and they're like, and there's so many things. There's some really great resources for foster parents. You don't have to pay for their insurance and stuff like that. So there's all questions with that. But they were like, oh, she's in foster. They had never had a foster kid come through, get their permit. And it was just shocking to me because when they're in group homes, they don't have a car to learn with. They don't have anything to provide that normalcy for them. And so it's very rare that kids in teenage years grow up in some kind of normal stability of what a normal teen life is like. And so there's just such a need for it. And I've learned that there's a lot of chaos that comes with teenagers because there's full of drama. But I also, and one of my things is I only took girls because being single, I'm like, oh, I'm a girl. But when I just recently took a boy, and I've learned that he has no drama, and they're so great. And so just my range of profiling, you learn so much. And so your expectations going into it, throw them out the window because they don't exist. God's going to shake it up anyway. So there's that.
Amazing. I have one more question. And Ashley, Kelly, you guys can answer if you want, but what's been your greatest challenge or your greatest reward?
I would say our greatest challenge has just been learning about trauma and how it affects our children. I have 3 biological children, and I thought I knew how to parent, and you can throw that out the window. These children have been through so much, and so learning about behaviors and how they're need-driven, I realized how much of my personal pride I wrapped up in having these good, obedient children, and God just really taught me that that's not my role, that's not my job, that they need us to love them, to meet their needs where they are, and but that has been a challenge, that has been a learning curve for us. And on the flip side, the greatest reward is that too, is that these kids have come in with struggles and seeing their growth. We had a little guy that came in with maybe a handful of 5 words and left speaking complete sentences. He was having double-digit issues at school every day, and left our house mostly able to self-regulate. And so just seeing those progressions, seeing the families make positive changes and get their children back, and seeing that reunification happen, and being able to sit on the outside and watch those families rebuild has been a great reward. Something to add.
No, yeah,
That's perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, thank y'all for being here. Thank you for standing in the gap to love the fatherless. Y'all are awesome. Can y'all give it up for them?
I love their stories, their testimonies, and man, just what they've been doing to stand in the gap for sure. Hey, what I want to do is I want to do one more thing. I want to have you hear from one more person today, and I'm going to have Jen Sturck from Echo Ministries join me on the stage. She runs an organization that is doing exactly what we're talking about, standing in the gap, loving the fatherless, and it's remarkable. And so I wanted to get you guys some information about this organization, introduce you to her, and man, give you some more ways to get involved. Here, I got your microphone this this time. Look at that. I remembered. So just a couple of questions. We connected probably a little over a year ago, maybe. And I saw stuff as we moved out here and started doing stuff. I started seeing what Echo was doing. And you guys have been around since 2011. You shared with me in 2018, you guys saw some just amazing growth through partnerships, through volunteers, through donations. And now in 2019, you're kind of riding that and doing some amazing things there. So share a little bit what Echo stands for and a little bit about your mission as well.
Sure. So ECHO stands for Everyday Christians Helping Orphans. We work to meet the physical and spiritual needs of children in foster care, adoptive homes, relative and non-relative placements. We do this through our multiple locations in Polk Highlands and Hardy County, where the families can come every single month and get items for the children for free, all ran by volunteers. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so there's multiple locations. How many locations do you guys currently have?
We currently have 4.
4 locations.
Yes.
And how many of those are in Polk County?
There are 2 in Polk County. One is actually down right now for renovations, but the other will be opening up June 8th.
Okay, awesome. And so with Polk being huge, how many locations would be ideal to reach the families in Polk County?
Really, we think 4 would be able to reach the majority of families in Polk County, yes.
So they're all volunteer-run, these locations. What does that look like? What would a volunteer do? How many volunteers are at each location?
So there's a lot of different ways you can volunteer. So there's the locations you can volunteer at. Each has a director who handles the overall maintenance and the volunteers there at the center. And then you have regular volunteers that come in when we're open and they stock the shelves. They help the families. They play with the kids when they show up. That's a big deal. There is opportunity for people to bring your own children into the location. My kids, that was one of the best things we realized as we went along was when these children come in, they're intimidated by adults. They've seen a lot of adults that they're not familiar with. And so when my kids were there, they were able to walk off with my children and go play in the other room, felt more safe and secure with them. There's also opportunities in our leadership, going out and talking to the public about what we do. Like I said before, we meet the physical need, but we also try and meet the spiritual need at these locations. So some of these families, actually all of our families, they vary. A lot of different types of families, believers, unbelievers. And so when they come in, a lot of unbelievers want to know why in the heck we even do this for free and what drives us to do it. So it's an opportunity to share the love of Christ with them, pray with case managers before the kids even enter the homes. It's a huge opportunity for us as a church.
So there's some ways to get involved. And you shared with me that one of the best ways to get involved is ultimately you need more locations. And I'm over here like, I want to do that. I want to get you a location. I don't even have a church. We meet in the cafeteria, but I want to help you get another location. And so, we talked about it last service, about what that looks like, about what the space looks like. Can you share a little bit more about what it would look like if we or someone in the congregation might be interested in getting a location for Echo? Go ahead.
Sure, absolutely. So we have different size locations everywhere, different size volunteer groups everywhere. Polk County has one of our largest, which is roughly 1,500 square feet. Our most recent Polk County location on the north side is a 10 by 25, I keep getting that wrong, storage shed that was converted into a clothing closet. It's really quite beautiful. So it can be all different kinds of sizes. It really just needs a group of people who are willing to serve, to go above and beyond for these families when they need it. And God will provide the location. So it doesn't matter the size, really.
Awesome. And so I wanted you to know that because, I'm over here thinking, what can we do? Where can we go? And maybe someone here in the first service will say, hey, I got a place where we can do that. Let's make this happen. I'm really interested in volunteering and running that. And so I just wanted to get it out there, get the information out about that. Now, there's another way. I didn't do this last service, but can you talk a little bit about the barrel and tushies and toes? Is that what you guys call it?
Yes. So one of the ways that you can serve if you're not able to volunteer at a center or you're not handy with tools and able to come out and help build beds for kids in care, we have that as well. There's so many different ways you can get involved. And this is one of the easiest, but one of the most effective ways to get involved. If you are out in the community, businesses, any individuals, companies, schools that would be willing to do a donation drive, we can set them up every quarter. We can do it once a year. We provide the barrels. We come, we drop them off, we pick them up when the donation drive is over, make it very easy. And we do different types of drives. So the tushies and toes, which is always fun to hear guys say, is socks, underwear, and diapers specifically, one of our greatest needs. And then we do pajama drives, we do bedding, all different kinds of drives. We have all the literature for it. We can provide all of those things. Like I said, we make it easy. But this is one of the best ways to do that. Yeah.
So we'll be doing one of these in the coming weeks. We're going to coordinate that. And then if you want to know more, if you want to stay up to date with what Echo's doing, man, definitely follow them on social media, Facebook, and you guys are on Instagram too, right? Yes. Okay. So you can follow them on there. That's all. Jennifer's going to be here after service. If you would like more information to learn more about how you can get involved, man, make sure you stop by their table, say hi, meet them, and get involved. We guys give it up for Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now I want to I want to wrap this up. I want to close it out. I want to challenge you to get involved, but I want to go back to Nehemiah. So we're going to go back into Nehemiah chapter 2, and this is really where we're at. You've heard about the need. You've heard about what's going on, and this is what Nehemiah says. It says, get up now. And I love it because this is one of our values, right? That we're gonna get up and go. We're gonna get up and we're gonna do something. Get up now. It's time to rebuild. It's time for us to get involved. And so it says they began the good work. And so we're gonna do that. We're gonna get involved. But it goes on and says our adversaries, guess what? They lost no time either. When our enemy heard of our plans, guess what they did? They mocked us. And they challenged us. And listen, when you step into the gap to love the fatherless, guess what it does? It wrecks the enemy's plan for division and confusion. And we want to be a part of that. And so when you start wrecking his plan, guess what he's going to do? He's going to come at you. And he's going to tear you down. Before you even start, maybe you're thinking about it right now, and he'll speak lies and say, no, you can't do that. You're not good enough. You're not equipped. He'll tear you down and say, you don't have time for that. It's too much. It's not worth it. That's what the enemy will say, but I can tell you this, and I believe this, that when we stand in the gap for the fatherless to showcase the love of the Father, it is never going to be not worth it. It will always be worth standing in the gap to love the fatherless. Nehemiah, this is what they did. They went and they did an amazing work. And in chapter 2, verse 20, it says, the true God of heaven, when we stand in the gap, when we take a bold step to risk it all, it says the true God of heaven will give us success because we are his people, his servants who have begun the good work of rebuilding. So we want to begin that work. We want to stand in the gap to love the fatherless. I want to ask you guys to bow your heads, close your eyes, and I just want to challenge you. I want to challenge you today just to take a step, any step, to stand in the gap, to love the fatherless, to step in this, to start rebuilding or building. And no, we're not all called to be foster parents. I understand that. But we are all called to do something. We are all called to get involved. And just like in Nehemiah was called to go and to lead this thing, and he had, hundreds of people standing next to him that helped him accomplish this great task that God gave him. And God has called each and every one of us, his children, to fight for his children who are hurting and who are in need. So what's your step going to be today? Maybe it's just a step to finding out more information, going to a class to become a foster or adoptive parent. Or maybe it's stepping in to do respite care, short-term care for foster families and that need a little bit of rest and to be refreshed and to be loved on. Maybe it's to volunteer at Echo or Florida Baptist Children's Home with one more child. Or maybe your step today to stand in the gap is just to rally around foster parents, foster families, foster advocates, provide meals, provide clothes, provide furniture, get involved in some way. And my challenge to you today is to take a step. Wherever God is prompting you, whatever God is speaking to you, step into it. God, right now, I want to pray for all the children, the immense amount of children who need us to step into their lives, to rebuild that trust, to rekindle that hope, to help them be loved again. God, we are called as your children to stand in the gap to love the fatherless. So I pray for every prompting, every conviction, everything you're speaking to them right now. Don't let them ignore it. God, let them step into it and risk everything to be someone who loves the fatherless. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.